So, yeah, I'm just a little bit overwhelmed, so just bear with me. There's quite a mix of views coming on our table, which is a good thing, just trying to distill all of that and pull out some of the key pieces. The theme we were talking about was how changes to technology will affect visualization. So we talked around, a lot of what we talked around was actually the risks associated with all of that. I think the thinking was that there's a lot of good technology already there. There's a lot of capability already there. But where we ended up coming back to was around integrity, provenance, trust, and that being absolutely critical. And thinking about how you bake that into things. How do you actually bake that from the data point of view into what is then going out as a visualization? And what we came back to was standards a lot. So talking a lot around having standards in there, which is critical in how data is actually being collected and consumed and used. Friction is necessary. So there was talk earlier on about this utopia in the future where things are frictionless. That's not necessarily a good thing. Sometimes you need some friction and some guardrails to make sure that there's some checks and balance. We talked a bit about how there's risks in making technology ubiquitous. So we had an example where one of the organisations on the table had the ability to allow anyone in the organisation to now make and consume mapping, which is great, but the problem is that there's big knowledge gaps in how to actually then visualise that. So if you allow people who are non-geospatial, non-cartography people to do the visualisation, hand that over to the layperson, there's big risks in that. And what is being seen is that there's a lag in training. So there's a lag in actually the training and the education around how to do that properly. And again, comes back to standards. Standards can help to make sure that those people who are able to create this and that we're passing that out of our community to other people, we can perhaps lock that back somehow with standards against things. There's a question here around, will we actually be visualizing or will we just be consuming decisions? Visualization is dead. Yeah, that was quite a sort of controversial statement. But the point here is, technology has to support this. You've got to have self-declaring and reporting things. And the problem with going right straight through to decision making is you're making what we do even more black box. So it's visualization and actually the processes we go through are important before you get to that decision making. We talked a bit around central repositories, common platforms, and how these are necessary. That came from a few different viewpoints, which is good. And then finally, we were talking around how hardware and technology is constantly getting cheaper. There's a really good example of how very high-powered GNSS capability is now available for £400 or £500, which it wouldn't have been a few years ago, that can allow you to get down to 2 centimetre accuracy in things. And unless you know how to use that properly, you're not going to be delivering things at 2 centimetres accuracy. But the risk is that the people who are using it just assume that that's happening. And that example comes through in other applications of technology where, because it's shiny technology and it says it can do this, you just believe it blindly and go ahead with it. And the risks exist there if things aren't critiqued properly and if things are just believed. And the answer to that, we didn't just say, okay, well, there's a problem. The answer to that is self-declaring data. So somehow, again, coming back to standards and having that baked in and the data telling you when it's right or wrong and what its error margins are. That's it. Thanks.